The wheels of Australian industry are beginning to grind. The National Accounts is a quarterly report on economic health, and today it showed activity slowed in the 3 months to the end of September. But at a tick over 3%, the rate of growth across the year still looks healthy. For his take on the nation's economic future, I was joined by the Shadow Treasurer a short time ago. Joe Hockey, welcome.
Great to be here, Chris.
Now, the economy is clearly slowing, but if you become Treasurer next year, your response to that is going to be to cut harder than Labor's cutting at the moment. Can you explain what that would do to a slowing economy?
Well, I don't accept the premise that what we will do would add to a slowing economy. We have a 4-point plan for the economy. It includes getting rid of the waste, and there is still waste in the budget. There's plenty of it, and Labor has a history of waste. We also are going to get rid of the taxes and some of the spending associated, or most of the spending associated with them. The mining tax and the carbon tax, that will, from our point of view, have a stimulatory effect on the economy. We've got a 6-point plan for productivity, which Tony Abbott's talked a lot about, and the 4th part of our plan is real engagement with Asia. And we think that is an avenue to prosperity, not just putting out a white paper with lots of words.
It's true, though, that you want to cut spending in order to return the budget to surplus. That's a fact, isn't it?
Well, according to the government, it'll already be in surplus.
But you're going to cut harder than the government, aren't you? I'm just trying to establish a baseline.
Well, we haven't said what we project, forecast our surplus to be, but the government on the numbers today says it's still going to get to surplus. It's fiddling the books to get there, but we'll wait and see.
But do you accept that if you cut government expenditure as the economy is slowing, you run the risk of putting the economy into recession?
Well, it depends where you cut and the impact of the cuts. If you are cutting waste, no, I don't accept that. But if you are making life harder and not easier, I mean, the government misleads people by suggesting they're making savings where they're increasing tax. And if you're increasing taxes on people, then that does slow the economy, there's no doubt about that.
Okay, if you get into government, though, you find that the economy is slowing and it's slowing more rapidly than you expected. Will you change course and spend money in order to stimulate?
Well, we've got to deal with the situation as it occurs. I mean, I've been consistent and we're at one with the government about the need to get back to surplus. The difference is the government makes heroic promises and then tells you afterwards how they're going to pay for them, leaving the budget worse off.
You sign up for some of those heroic promises, though, like a national disability insurance scheme, and as yet nobody has any clear pathways to how they'll pay for it. How would you pay for it?
Well, Chris, the books haven't closed off for the election period. I mean, they don't close off until 10 days into the election campaign, and when the documents are actually released by the Department of Finance and the Department of Treasury, then we'll see the real state of the books. But we can't give you box and dice now because you're asking us to give you a prognosis of what the books are going to look like in 12 months' time. I can't do that.
And when you cut the carbon tax, will you cut all of the goodies that went with it?
Well, certainly there is massive room to cut the expenditure associated with the carbon tax.
So the compensation that people got?
We will deal with that as we get closer to the election and look at the state of the books.
But you would have to remove the compensation that people got for electricity price rises, so you would take that back?
No, you're making a supposition that I don't accept, and that is we want to make life easier for Australians, not harder, and we've got to find ways to do that, and we will give you the full box and dice before the next election.
You can't credibly talk about cutting the carbon tax without taking away that compensation so that it makes it reasonable for the government to be able to afford its promises.
No, well, we've said we will get rid of the carbon tax, and we do not accept a whole raft of spending associated with the carbon tax. Now, in relation to the income tax changes and obviously the compensation for pensioners, we'll give you the details of that before polling day based on the information that indicates the true state of the budget numbers. I mean, the government has no economic plan, Chris. This is why it's in a complete mess at the moment. And we have a plan, but we are only going to make promises that we can afford.
Sure, but at this stage it's a secret plan. It's reasonable for us to say at the moment that we don't have all the information to make an informed choice about what you would do because a lot of the information isn't there yet.
Well, the books haven't closed. That's right. The government's books have not closed. Therefore, we're unable to compare apples with apples. But let me tell you, if we had made promises on the basis that the government last year was going to have, as it promised, a $22 billion deficit, and it ended up having a $44 billion deficit, we would have been irresponsible. We will not be irresponsible, either at the starting point or at the finishing point.
Or if we look at what the retail banks are doing at the moment after yesterday's cut to the cash rate, they are not passing on all of that cut again. It's about 20 basis points. Do you honestly expect us to believe that if we changed treasurers, you would be able to jawbone the banks into passing more of that on?
Well, I'll tell you something. The banks don't take the government seriously. That's quite clear. They never have. And under this government, the banks have increased the four major banks have increased their market share to 85% of the home loan market. Now, this government hasn't properly addressed financial reform. We said we're going to have a root and branch financial system inquiry. One of the terms of reference of that inquiry will focus on greater competition in particular areas in the market.
Do you honestly believe a change of treasurer would change the way that banks look at whether or not they'd pass on the full cash rate cut? Because Peter Costello, of course, tried to jawbone the Reserve Bank during the 2007 election, and that had no effect.
Well, there's a difference between jawboning the Reserve Bank and jawboning the four major banks.
So you can simply talk them into it, even though they say their cost of funding is the problem.
No, I'm not making any. I cannot make any guarantees. But you look at our record, and our record illustrates that the banks listen to us when we're in government. The banks have, on more than 55 occasions, ignored this government. And why wouldn't they? The rest of Australia ignores this government, so why wouldn't the banks?
Finally, just briefly though, so you're saying the banks are lying about their cost of funding, it's just that they don't like the Treasury?
Well, we don't have the resources to have a look at their cost of funding, and I have publicly and privately asked the Reserve Bank to be the independent referee on this, to rule on their cost of funds. Now, if the cost of funds are high, then the Reserve Bank can go further and cut further in order to deliver the stimulus outcome that they're looking for.
Joe Hockey, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.